Hello and welcome to Candidate Conversations. Thank you for joining us. I'm Michele McCray, Community Engagement and Member Services Coordinator at DCTV. I'm thrilled to be your host for Candidate Conversations. Our role at Candidate Conversations is neutral. DCTV is a bipartisan nonprofit organization serving as a community convener. Our goal is to give the community an opportunity to get to know the candidates by allowing each to present their platform to the community. In this era of COVID-19, providing DC residents the opportunity to get to know the candidates from the safety and comfort of their television viewing location is more important than ever. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with candidate Paul Strauss, running for the office of United States Senator in the general election. Welcome, candidate Strauss, and thank you for being here. So let's start. Our first question is on the topic of DC statehood. Should the District of Columbia become the 51st state? In your opinion, why or why not?
The District of Columbia should absolutely become the 51st state. DC residents serve our country in so many ways. We serve in the military, civilian office, we meet all of the obligations of citizenship, and unlike President Trump, we pay full federal taxes. We deserve statehood. More importantly, the citizens of the United States deserve the perspective and understanding that DC residents would bring to the United States Senate and the House of Representatives. We have a lot to contribute to this country, and we do contribute a lot to this country, and we deserve the equality and dignity that comes from full statehood.
Our community and our world are currently fighting a major pandemic. As a community leader, what would you do to address the range of issues caused by COVID-19?
Well, first and foremost, we must all be vigilant and continue to practice the public health guidelines. That includes wearing a mask, maintaining social distancing, working from home if you can, and if you're an essential worker, making sure that you have the appropriate protective equipment that you need. As a member of the mayor's Reopen DC COVID Task Force, I worked with leaders around the city to make sure that our response to this virus is importantly being addressed at all levels. But we are being shortchanged by the federal government. In the recent coronavirus spending bill, DC did not get the same level of resources that we need to fight the virus. It's one more reason why statehood and the fight against coronavirus are one and the same.
As a leader, what steps would you like to take, if any, to achieve a just, equitable, and inclusive city, and why?
The District of Columbia is home to over 700,000 Americans, and we're engaged in a struggle for equality at the national level. But it's important to maintain and make sure that we provide equal opportunity to all of our residents at the local level. When we become the 51st state, it's going to be incumbent on us to make sure that the opportunities that come from statehood are distributed and made available to all of our residents, regardless of economic status, regardless of where you live, regardless of your race, your age, your gender. Everybody deserves an equal opportunity, and we're going to have to work to make sure that the 51st state provides those opportunities to all our citizens.
We appreciate your response. Now, Washington, D.C. has a long history as a leader in providing early childhood education and leads the nation in access to pre-K for both 3- and 4-year-old children. The district is investing over $100 million to expand early childhood education. What do you see as the most important education priorities for serving these young constituents?
Early childhood education is critical. Those who study the development of the young mind have come to understand that the years from 0 to 5 are the most important when it comes to getting that student on the right track. That's why DC is doing the right thing by investing in early education and continuing to reinvest in it. But the problem is, without being a state, we don't get the fair share of federal resources to support our early childhood education efforts. DC is a national leader on the issue, but this should be a national priority. Once we become a state, we'll be able to fight to make sure we get our fair share of federal resources and also provide national leadership to make sure that young people who live in DC and in the 50 other states get the same opportunities that they need and that they deserve. One of the problems that has been made so apparent, however, as a result of the COVID epidemic, is that there is a digital divide as well. And so while we're investing in making sure that these bricks and mortar schools are providing early childhood education, we must do more to make sure that the digital divide is bridged. Every young person in the district should be given a tablet, a laptop, the resources they need, access to broadband internet, so that as schools need to transition from virtual learning back to in-person education, we're not leaving a generation of students behind.
Now, candidate Strauss, in the last few moments we have left, tell us what additional information would you like for Washington, D.C. residents to know about you?
2020 hasn't been a very good year, but when it comes to our struggle for statehood and equality, we've made significant gains this year. I'm proud of the work I've been able to play in promoting DC statehood and making it an issue on the national stage. It's being debated right now in campaigns across the country, and it's something that we have waited far too long for. I'm going to continue to fight for the residents of DC and for our statehood until we have gotten everything that we deserve. This election, I'm asking for your vote. I'm not going to quit until we've achieved full statehood for the District of Columbia, full political equality for its residents, and full self-determination for its communities. For far too long, the Congress of the United States has made their priorities not what's important to Washington, D.C. residents. We've seen federal troops attack our citizens peacefully exercising their First Amendment rights. We've seen us being shortchanged when it comes to the important emergency resources we need out of those federal spending bills. And far too often, our local priorities are ignored or worse, overturned by a hostile right-wing Congress that views us as nothing more than an experiment in their social engineering policies. DC residents deserve equality, we deserve statehood, and I'm going to continue to fight for the people of Washington, D.C.
Thanks for your response. We certainly appreciate you coming to our show, and we really hope all the best for you in your run for the election.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Washington residents are being threatened by utility scams each day. Utility companies typically don't show up at a home or business without an appointment, and they don't threaten to disconnect service without warning.
I've been authorized to disable your gas for overdue payment.
If you're faced with a situation like this, stay calm. Don't let anyone inside your home. Then call the number on your utility bill to verify charges, and contact the Public Service Commission or the police to report scammers. Fight utility scams. The power is yours.
Hi, I'm Alvin Jones, native Washingtonian and president of AJ Productions, and also the managing partner of the Alvin Jones Communications Group. You may know me from my work at Black Entertainment Television as the Unseen VJ, News Channel 8, Planet Vehicle, Planet Jazz, The Quiet Storm on WHUR, Sirius XM, and C-SPAN. But what you may not know is that I got my start in media communications right here at DCTV as a member. DCTV has been serving the DC community for more than 3 decades by preparing members throughout this region for careers in media, whether it be in front of or behind the camera. And also, the education training program is comprehensive, and you can even gain access to the equipment and the resources that a creative person needs to bring a vision to a production reality. So that's my DCTV story. DCTV is meaningful media making an impact.
Welcome back. You're watching Candidate Conversations on DCTV. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with candidate Howie Hawkins, running for the office of President of the United States in the general election. Welcome, candidate Hawkins, and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Our first question is on the topic of DC statehood. Should the District of Columbia become the 51st state? In your opinion, why or why not?
DC absolutely should be the 51st state. It should have been the 51st state a long time ago. I'm running on the ballot line of the DC Statehood Green Party. And people of DC should have their fair share of representation and power in Congress. And that's what they'll get with statehood. So it's past time, and I hope after this election we can get it done.
Our community and our world are currently fighting a major pandemic. As a community leader, what would you do to address the range of issues caused by COVID-19?
Well, we're in a situation now where President Trump and all his people around him, he's been running around like Typhoid Mary, getting people infected. And those chickens have come home to roost because he hasn't listened to what the public health officials said, which is scale up testing, contact tracing, and isolating those exposed or infected so we suppress community spread of the virus, and we can go back to work and school safely. And here we are with 4% of the world's population and 25% of the COVID deaths. It's a total failure. So that's what I would do to suppress the virus, and then we got a COVID depression. People need that supplemental health, unemployment insurance. They need help with their rents and mortgages. They need help finding jobs. There needs to be a COVID relief package that is robust for the duration of the emergency so people can maintain until we get past this.
As a leader, what steps would you like to take, if any, to achieve a just, equitable, and inclusive city, and why?
Well, from the federal level, what we can do is something that President Roosevelt in 1944 and 1945, his last two State of the Union addresses, called for, which is an economic Bill of Rights. The Civil Rights Movement picked that up with the March on Washington in 1963, the freedom budget they gave to Congress, and instead of ending the war on poverty, they lost that war in Vietnam. And then the Poor People's Campaign that Dr. King was trying to lead before he was assassinated. So we are picking up that torch. We're calling for an economic Bill of Rights. So every person in DC, and in fact the country, has the right to a job. If they can't get a private job, there should be a public job waiting for them. They go to the employment office instead of the unemployment office. A guaranteed income above poverty built into the tax structure. So we just end poverty right there. Medicare for all. Enough public housing so everybody has an affordable option. Tuition-free public education from pre-K and child care through post-secondary college, trade school, and continuing adult education. And then finally, we need to increase Social Security benefits so every senior is living above the poverty line. That's the economic Bill of Rights, and I think it'll help the people of DC as well as people all over the country. We've had 45 years of declining, of stagnant wages, healthcare, housing, and college costs going through the roof. So actually the life expectancies of working class people have been in decline. It's inexcusable in a rich country. So that's what we would do, an economic Bill of Rights.
Now, Washington, D.C. has a long history as a leader in providing early childhood education and leads the nation in access to pre-K for both 3- and 4-year-old children. The district is investing over $100 million to expand early childhood education. What do you see as the most important education priorities for serving these young constituents?
Well, DC may be ahead of other cities, but that's a huge problem because mothers in particular, but parents, when they go to work, it's very expensive to provide childcare. Also, pre-K education to prepare kids for elementary school. And the issue is really cost, because a lot of people want to do it in these cities. So what I want to see the federal government do is take a much bigger responsibility for funding public education, both pre-K and childcare, but right through K through 8 and on to public colleges, universities, trade schools. And we do that by shifting the burden from property taxes, which are unequally distributed between municipalities, and relying more on the progressive federal income tax. That's a fair way to do it. Then you provide each community with their per capita share, and then those communities that have extra needs because of historic lack of resources should get a supplement. So I'd like to see the federal government provide a lot more funding for public education, including child care and pre-K.
Candidate Hawkins, in the last few moments we have left, tell us what additional information would you like Washington, D.C. residents to know about you?
Well, I was the first candidate in this country to campaign for a Green New Deal. And the Democrats that was the Green Party's signature issue in the 2010s. The Democrats took the slogan, diluted the content, and now they buried it. We're for a full-strength Green New Deal to deal with this climate crisis that we're facing. We have a plan to get to 100% clean energy and zero carbon emissions by 2030. I mentioned the Economic Bill of Rights. That's always been part of our Green New Deal, and that's the way we end poverty and economic despair. And then we're the only campaign saying we got a new nuclear arms race. The Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist has their doomsday clock, the closest it's ever been to midnight. And if we have a nuclear war, it's all over. So we're calling for peace initiatives, deep cuts in military spending, withdrawing from these endless wars, pledging no first use of nuclear weapons, and then going with reduced tensions to the other nuclear powers and say, let's negotiate complete and mutual nuclear disarmament. And I would say to progressives in DC, we're the second front against Trump. We're the stronger anti-Trump vote. And in fact, we want to beat Trump in DC. There's been no polls, but there's a model that The Economist magazine has says Trump's at 5%. We won't beat Trump, as well as, Biden will beat him because he's high up in the polls. So use your vote. Vote. If you're a progressive and you vote for Biden, you're voting against Medicare for all, against the Green New Deal, not for a progressive program. If you're a progressive, don't waste your vote on Biden here in DC. Vote for the Green Statehood, the DC Statehood Green Party line, and let's beat Trump twice in DC in 2020.
Candidate Hawkins, we appreciate you coming on our show. It was great speaking with you. All the best to you in the coming election.
Thank you very much.
That concludes this episode of Candidate Conversations. We look forward to seeing you for another episode of Candidate Conversations on DCTV.